Again, going back to the whole withholding question, just check the pay stub and make sure you're not getting in trouble with that. What I am concerned about for our overtime earners and our tip earners, if the withholding tables change to take into account that people in these industries can deduct part of those wages and not be taxed on them, how are the withholding tables going to change in 26? Because they may be withholding a little bit less, so maybe the refund they get for 26 won't be as robust as it is for 25. I don't know the answer to that. One other thing, while we're talking about the overtime deduction, this is something that is probably going to come up. There's no reporting tool to show how much somebody made in overtime. The W-2s have not changed.
Interesting. Okay.
The tips are different. The tips have always been on there.
Yeah.
But there's no box for overtime.
There's no like little sub box kind of like on a 1099-R where check this or put this letter code in.
Not yet. So for 25, what I've told my clients, my business clients who have people who have overtime pay, is you need to be prepared to give them some sort of year-to-date pay stub so they can look at that, because they're going to have to take that to their tax preparer and they're going to have to figure out what this is. The other tricky part to the overtime deduction, it's not the overtime wages in full. It's the overtime premium.
Ooh.
W-2s have not changed.
Interesting. Okay.
The tips are different. The tips have always been on there.
Yeah.
But there's no box for overtime.
There's no like little sub box kind of like on a 1099-R where check this or put this letter code in.
Not yet. So for 25, what I've told my clients, my business clients who have people who have overtime pay, is you need to be prepared to give them some sort of year-to-date pay stub so they can look at that, because they're going to have to take that to their tax preparer and they're going to have to figure out what this is. The other tricky part to the overtime deduction, it's not the overtime wages in full. It's the overtime premium.
Ooh.
So this is where it gets crazy.
So like if I make $25 an hour, but overtime is $29 an hour, it's that extra $4 that is not taxed, not the full 29.
Exactly.
Ooh, that is not as gracious as people expect it to be.
No, it's not. And I've been warning people. I've been warning them. I'm like, so whenever we wrote our blog about that, I put a calculation in there. I said, so make sure you understand that this is just the premium. So if your hourly rate's 20 and your overtime rate's 30, it's the $10 an hour for the hours you worked that were part of that overtime. It's not the $30 an hour. So that's why I say when these things get passed and they get thrown out into the world, I had so many questions from my seniors telling me, well, there's no more tax on any of my Social Security. And I'm like, that is not what the law says.
That did not make it into the law. It did not pass the House.
Nope.
It was talked about a lot, but it was not made law.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I had in my blog, I corrected it. I'm like, that's not what this means. This is just a deduction if you meet certain income thresholds and you're a senior. So there's a whole lot of math that goes into that. And I actually saw some of the senior deductions pop up in planning this year as we were doing tax estimates in Q4, because I do have a few clients who were in the ballpark to get it. And it's going to be interesting. The tax softwares, they're all going to do their job, and they've been updated for all these things because I'm seeing it now. But I do think as tax preparers, we have to look at it critically and say, did that calculate correctly? Because we can't depend on AI for everything. So
that's right. Yeah, I think there's a very good point there that you mentioned is, so things get passed and then it takes time to filter through the system. A big one that we've seen for the past few years is you had all of the laws around inherited retirement accounts changed in December of 2019.
Yep.
And then you had like 3 more bills get passed since then. So that was Secure Act 1 or Secure Act. You had Secure 2.0 Act. You had the CARES Act, CARES 2.0. Like there's incremental shifts for all of these. The IRS didn't give their official guidance on how those are actually going to be enforced in terms of RMDs while you're taking out your distributions until July 18th of 2024. You're talking about almost 5 years, like 4 years and 7 months to actually clarify the rules of how things get done. And we had a situation a week ago where I had a client that had inherited some accounts, and I told them, hey guys, like here's the rules. Like, did you satisfy your RMDs last year? And they said, well, no, the former advisor before we moved the accounts said we didn't have to. I'm like, well, that advisor doesn't know what they're talking about because I can show you online exactly where it says what you got to do. So it's there's a lot of confusion that you have to be very aware of, and then question, like, I don't say question everything, but you have to be very diligent to question the right things and validate information.
Absolutely. When the client, I say sign, as in the old days of them getting out a pen, you don't do that anymore. But
Right.
when you acknowledge on an e-file authorization that this thing is ready to go, you've said all of this information is accurate and correct. And so you just got to be careful about that. I do think that, and I encourage my clients to go over their tax returns and come back to me with questions before they give us the e-file authorization, which is our cue to transmit it. I'm like, ask me questions. Look at the year-to-year comparatives. We spend a lot of time sending them information, and when I send out that final email that says, here, you owe this much, or you're getting back this much, I go through a lot of points. I'm like, this was your change in year-to-year income. If you look at page 4 of the PDF, that's your year-to-year comparison. Please look at that, because some people don't really know what they made the prior year or what they made this year. It's just it's this smattering of information that they get in the mail and they scan it and send it to us. And but ultimately, it's their responsibility for it to be correct. So,
yeah, that's a very good point as well. I hear a lot of people make comments, or have over the years, is if their tax return didn't come back the way they expected, like they expected a big refund and it wasn't as much, or they expected break even and they had a big balance due. I feel like a lot of times, and this might just be pure ignorance and being naive, like they blame the tax preparer.
sure.
And in the same way, I see a lot of tax preparers, not you guys at all, but like I've seen people over the years where they will try to make the numbers look a little bit better for the sake of looking like the hero. And I catch that of like a lot of times it's, oh, well, hey, you don't owe anything this year. Well, no. Page 2, 1040, you actually paid $75,000 in taxes. That was your appropriate bill, and you dialed it in leading up to the year. You don't owe anything else.
Right.
Not you didn't owe anything. So like I think it's being very critical and very, very specific about those numbers and how you approach it and how you understand what's behind it. Like that is important. And to me, that goes back to collaboration and communication. So I'm curious, like as you guys have grown in your business, you mentioned you've made all the mistakes. Now you're at a point where hopefully fewer mistakes, right, going forward.
Yeah.
There's always learning processes in business. But what would you say are some of the best aligned relationships that someone can have, like for the small business owner in their life?
That's a really good question, and this is something that we will talk to new business owners about from time to time. We offer a consulting engagement for brand new businesses are business owners who don't really know what it's like to own a business and run a business, and we take them through five or six meetings just about entrepreneurial potholes. Because I think with 30 years of experience, I've seen a lot of them. I probably haven't seen them all. I've run through a lot of them too, and so. I'm the guy who does not have any problem in the world sharing a war story about something I did wrong or something that I just misunderstood completely about owning a business and screwed up. I don't mind doing that. If I can keep somebody from making the same mistake, I'll happily throw myself under the bus or show them something stupid that I did. I don't have a lot of there's no pride there.